front since my last video. So quite a lot's been going on. I've been painting a little bit of terrain, or rather, I have these old pieces from a company called Purbeck Terrain that you may have seen in some of my back reps of Congo. They're a bit old now, a bit dated. The colour scheme doesn't really fit in with my my terrain and so on, so I've always had it in mind to paint them up. So this is an unpainted, I've got 5 of them. This is one of the ones I haven't got around to painting so far, but just to show you what I've been able to make of them. I've given them a kind of more reddish pink rock appearance, covered them with a little bit of flock and various items of scenic materials that I've got lying around the house, and against the backdrop of the savannah mat that I've got on the table there, I think you can see they fit in a bit better now with my terrain. I'm quite pleased with them. So that's one. That's another one. And a little one here. For this one I gave it, I put some plants on it from sort of aquarium type bits and pieces that I had lying around as well. So this one has slightly different foliage on it to the other two, and I've got the one that I just showed you that I haven't painted yet, and one more that I'm in the process of painting. So when they're finished, they're going to be sufficient terrain for the sort of rocky and dangerous terrain on my savannah mat. But the most notable thing to have happened in the last couple of months, which was, I acquired this back at the end of October I think, is the new campaign supplement to the rules, which is called Congo New Arrivals, which is a really nicely turned out publication. I have my reservations about campaign systems in general. My own kind of personal experience of them is that they're a great idea to begin with, but you rarely get to finish them, especially if a lot of people are involved, such as at a club. It's really hard to organise people to play games on time and so on, and they generally kind of fizzle out. This campaign, Studio Tomahawks had previously brought out a campaign system for Saga, and I never bothered with that. Never purchased it really for those reasons. I mean, I'm not playing a great deal of Saga at all in the last year or so anyway, but I would have had it just sitting on my shelf really if I'd still been going to the War Games Club, because I did try and organise a Saga campaign at the club once, and people just lost interest really, so it never came to a conclusion. But in the case of Congo New Arrivals, it's a campaign system for 2 players, so it's a little bit more manageable. The one thing that I still have my doubts about is that as you progress through a campaign, obviously there's attrition and there are boosts and so on that you can add as you succeed in your tasks. There are additions that you can add to your faction and so on. But it does mean that you could sort of get the one player could sort of get on top of the other, and then it kind of takes the other player's enthusiasm to complete the campaign away a little bit. That's my only kind of doubt really, and the way Studio Tomahawk got around that problem in this case is that this is the main reason that I purchased this supplement, because even if you don't play the campaign, it comes with 6 more scenarios. So you play the scenarios, and then at the end of it, you might even have lost your main character, but at the end of it, you're really just rolling on this table, or one of these 2 tables, to see if you can climb to the top of this throne of thunder, which is a mountain, before your opponent. So the culmination of the campaign isn't actually a game, it isn't actually a war game, it's just moving tokens along on this chart. And yeah, that gets around, so it does mean that the person who's been losing in the scenarios might still win the campaign. But it's a little bit of an anticlimax at the end of the campaign, I'd suggest. But the scenarios, fantastic. They have 6 new scenarios, and they have also given you a new dangerous terrain table. So you can either use this one in the original set of rules, or you can stick with the old one. But it's good to have 2 new dangerous terrain tables, one for savannah, one for the jungle. And on top of that, excuse me, they have added a number of new wild animals and some new characters into the mix as well. So it's not just a campaign system; it's a supplement to the rules, and it's well worth having. So the rules themselves, I might just change the camera angle now and give you an idea of some of the figures that you could, there are 2 figures that come with this supplement, and then Wargames Foundry have brought out a box set that includes all the new wild animals and the new characters that have been introduced. So I'll change the camera angle and show you those next. Right, now the rules themselves, or the supplement itself, comes with 2 free figures, and they represent the 2 main protagonists in the campaign. So you have a character called Mary Kingsley, and you have a character called Ajua. And Mary Kingsley leads a white men expeditions faction, and Ajua leads a forest tribes faction. But you can actually, there are adjustments that you can make in the rules to allow you to play either a Zanzibari force or an African tribes, African kingdoms force. As far as the figures themselves go, to be brutally honest, I'm not that impressed by them. I think Studio Tomahawk's problem was that Wargames Foundry are the official supplier of the figures for Congo, but they don't actually have in their range a suitable figure for Mary Kingsley. That is because most of the Wargames Foundry's female figures for this period and set in Africa tend to have weapons and look a little bit more aggressive, as it were, whereas the way the character of Mary Kingsley is portrayed in the supplement is that she's far more about learning and discovering and interacting with tribes and collecting specimens and that kind of thing. So they've had to manufacture this figure, which doesn't have she isn't armed in any way. She has a sort of walking staff. She's got a satchel in which she's got some items that she's been collecting. And I'm a little bit curious about the book. Is it a book in which she is writing? I presume it must be, because there certainly wouldn't have been guidebooks that she could have followed at the time. So I think she's meant to be being portrayed writing in the notebook, but she doesn't have a pencil or pen in her hand. She's just got her hand resting on the book. And I mean, the really gross thing about this figure, when you first see it, is you think to yourself, what on earth is that she's got sat on her left shoulder, and in fact it's her hair. It's just really kind of clumsy representation of her hair blowing in the wind. But I'm not impressed by it, to be frank. But she's a free figure, and you can always find. I'm sure there's something out there that you could find. Excuse me, that would be suitable. As far as the witch doctor figure, Ajuba, goes, that Walgains Foundry do have a whole range of, they've got a whole, I think about 8 various witch doctor figures that they do. So it wasn't really necessary to do another figure, but I suppose having been compelled to produce one for Mary Kingsley, they then thought they might as well bring out a witch doctor figure as well. And yeah, the witch doctor figure is a lot better. But he is a little bit kind of over the top. He's wearing an entire crocodile hide, which is not something I've ever seen portrayed before, and he's got this sort of nasty looking venomous snake in his one hand and a sort of skull on a stick in the other, and he's completely naked. Again, that's another aspect in the illustrations in the supplement. I won't put the book in front of the camera now because I probably won't be able to get it to focus. But he's been painted up as though he's wearing some kind of sheath over his private parts. But as far as I can see, he's stark naked, apart from his necklaces and bits and pieces. So why they had to do that and then be a bit coy about how they painted him in the supplement, I don't know. And the other thing the 2 things that I'm not keen on, one is that he's got his left leg raised in the air, and in order to sort of strengthen the figure, they've had to resort to this usual device of putting something that looks a bit like a tree stump or something like that under his foot. If you were to cut that off, and in the illustrations in the book they have cut it off, or they've photoshopped it out somehow, I don't know. If you were to do that, my experience in the past has been that does weaken a figure, and they often do start to lean over, or they snap off at their other leg or something like that. So I didn't want to take it off. Yeah, I'm never very keen on. It's not so bad with horses. You often see that with horses because they've usually got 1 or 2 legs raised in the air as they move. But I think they were a little bit too ambitious with this sculpt in a way, and I'd rather have had him A, with both feet on the ground, and B, not leaning over quite so dramatically. I mean, you really only get to see a lot of his features. He's got a fantastic face with his tongue sticking out. I think that's focused. But you don't get to see it because he's almost bent double. And even trying to photograph him is a little bit difficult. You can see that he's in sort of shadow there. But anyway, I sound as though I'm being really negative about these figures. They're free figures, and there's nothing to complain about in that respect. So yeah, they're the 2 figures that come with the supplement. And then Walgains Foundry, to accompany the supplement, have brought out a box set which contains all the different new wild animals and the 4 new characters that you can add to the original rulebook if you want. So there is a doctor, there is an archaeologist, and those 2 would go with the White Men Expeditions faction. There is a soothsayer. Now I already have this figure, so this is the second of these figures that I have. because this figure comes in the Witch Doctor's pack. But it's always good to have another one. So I painted him up slightly differently from the other figure. And the final character is, I think he's called a Wise Man. And I'm not sure, he is from the original Wargames Foundry Darkest Africa range, but I'm not sure what pack he comes from. Haven't identified him yet. So they can all be added to the game. And then the wild animals, it was quite fun to paint these up, something a little bit different, but some of them I've done a slightly better job than others. This is a leopard. So you have, two new types of animal that go in the jungle and two new types that go in the savannah. And I think the leopard is a jungle animal. Quite nice. You have an elephant, and this is a perfectly good figure as well, but I would say that it doesn't look particularly frightening. There is another model, one that's pictured in the supplement, of an elephant with its trunk raised and its ears forward, and obviously sort of an enraged elephant. This one looks as though it's just having a good time plodding along in the savannah. But a nice enough figure. You have a hippopotamus, which again I think is, sorry about the shine on him, the light sort of reflecting a little bit off the way I painted it. Again, I think this is a jungle animal rather than a savannah animal. Maybe, I don't know, there's no water really involved in many of the scenarios in Congo. And I tried to paint him up so that he's got a little bit of a sort of pinkish tone to his sort of underbelly. I think that came out. One of the things I just noticed is a little bit of flocker stuck to his top there, so I'll have to sort of paint over that later. But yeah, there's the hippo. And then the ones that I actually, they didn't impress me much before I painted them, but these are the ones that I actually like the most out of the whole group, which is a kind of little cackle, I think the collective term is, of hyenas. And I sort of was experimenting a little bit with paints and so on to try and get what looked like to me like a sort of spotted hyena kind of colours, and I was quite pleased with those. So they act as a group, I believe. I haven't read the rules on these yet, but these are savannah creatures. Pretty large, I have to say. If you put the archaeologist down in the middle of them, I mean, I thought hyenas were a little bit smaller than that, but then they look like dangerous animals. I wouldn't like to come between them and their lunch. And I think that's it. That's all of the animals. So I just thought I'd show those to you. Thanks very much for watching. See you on the next video. Bye for now.